Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Ear Hustling Podcast. You're here live today on Facebook Live. I'm James, got my boy Eric with us, of course, as usual. We're just going to jump right in. Eric, if you don't mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have obviously what's a hot topic. Not only
hang on one second, Eric. I still had an intro that I wanted to do. I just wanted to know if you was okay with us jumping in.
Let's jump in.
All right, cool. I'm not going to jump into a question quite yet, but I definitely want to give the listeners some ideas on what's going to happen today. And sorry I interrupted you, but you're absolutely right. It is today's topic is a very heavy, hot topic, but it is a topic that needs to be addressed. There's a lot of people in this country today and recently that are hurting. Some members of this panel is hurting. We're coming together today to communicate and have open dialogue on an issue that's crippling many people. Today, we have people with some similarities as well as some differences. It is with great hope that this conversation can be eye-opening to members of the panel as well as listeners. In regards to the listeners, we ask that you comment on the video, ask questions to anyone specifically on the panel or as a panel as a whole. We want to hear from you listeners. You have ideas, you have thoughts, we want to hear what those are. We do have a few rules that we've talked to the people. It's kind of like a boxing match. You know, back in the locker room, we went over the rules, but I just want to share with the listeners what we talked about as well. Want to cover with the panel. We want each of them to be to give respect to the panel members. So if someone's talking, please allow them to complete their sentence before they're jumping in. To the listeners out there in the cyber world, if I mute someone, I promise I'm not trying to censor them. I just want to make sure that everyone's voices are heard. And I'll definitely try to jump to, Eric and I would definitely try to jump to that person who was attempting to get their message across. So with that being said, Eric, do you have anything you want to add before we jump to my first question?
Nope. Other than, again, like I told you, ladies and gentlemen, before, we definitely appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to address what's going on. We have a very wide range of individuals, different parts of the countries, different ethnicities, and different beliefs. Everybody's opinion, whether I agree or disagree with, we're going to respect everybody's opinion. Let's jump in.
Awesome. So our topic today is race, right? It's a racial tension in this country right now, and contrary to popular belief, this is not a black versus white issue. This is black versus racism issue. As you soon will see on our panel, listeners, viewers, you may start looking at people and like, oh, you must think this way, you must think that way. You'll be surprised. Don't judge a book by its cover. I can't wait to jump in here. So let's start off with some introduction. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to call on you all to introduce yourself. First and last name, if you don't mind. If you just want to do first name, that's fine. If you want to do alias, that's fine too. Just do not blame me when I screw it up because you didn't tell me an alias. Share your occupation if you're open to doing so. And one thing that I would like for you to share also, if you're okay with, is share any children that you may have. The number of children, the age, and the gender. Something about children is going to come up later on.
And again,
so,
like I told you.
So, Adam, go ahead and start us off there, sir.
All right, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Yes.
All right, sweet. My name's Adam. Grew up in the Midwest. I'm 48 years old. I've lived in Georgia now for almost 10 years.
Something about children is going to come up later on.
And I've got 2 kids, a 15-year-old boy and a 19-year-old girl.
Okay, awesome. Ms. Devon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Sadara Devon. I'm in Los Angeles. I am an attorney and real estate broker, and I have a 17-year-old male child.
Okay, thank you. Adrian, welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Adrian Villanueva, also known as DJ Heat in the Metro Atlanta area, originally from the great state of Florida, South Florida. I actually own an entertainment company and work for a food broadliner in the Atlanta area. I have 3 kids, two young ladies, and the boy, which is the baby, all 21 and up.
21 and up. Okay, thank you. Nicole, how about you? And welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. My name is Nicole Morgan. I'm a writer and an educator. I have two daughters, 24 and 16.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Daniel.
Hi, my name is Daniel. Been in Georgia for over 16 years. I'm in government, and I'm a proud father of 6 children from 24 all the way down to 10.
Okay, awesome. All right. Randy, how about you, sir? Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm Randy Hopkins. I live in Farmington, Utah, and I think I'm the old guy here. I've got 4 kids and 10 grandkids, another one on the way. And I've got 3 daughters and a son. My oldest is, I'm trying to remember, probably about 42. And I worked for the state of Utah for about 35 years, retired from the state of Utah. I was a candidate for Congress on the Democratic ticket here in Utah, and I didn't make it through the convention, but I'm very interested in politics.
Awesome. Thanks, Randy. And once again, welcome back. Adam, welcome back as well. I forgot to mention that also. Chris, a 3rd returning member, actually a 4th returning member. I'm sorry, Nicole was here as well. So Chris, welcome back to the show. Tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, I'm the only Chris, right? That's what
you are, yes.
Okay. All right. Chris Howard, originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, currently reside in Atlanta, Georgia. Work in television and film on the development side. We own our own company here in Atlanta. We develop and produce reality television shows. I have 3 stepkids, 2 girls, 27 and 24, and the boy is 26. And that's it.
Awesome. And last but not least, Tanya, welcome.
Hello. I am originally I was born in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Lived part of my youth in Tennessee, graduated high school in Mississippi, lived in Florida for a while, and now I'm in New York. I've been all over the country. I'm a mom to 3 children. My daughter will be 22 in November. I have 2 autistic boys. One is 16 and one is 9.
All right. Once again, as Eric mentioned, as I've mentioned, thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it. So we're just going to jump right into some questions here. First 3 questions are kind of rapid fire. We're looking for just 1-word answer, please. We're going to start back with you, Tanya. We're going to go with reverse order. Does white privilege exist?
Did you say me? I'm sorry.
I did.
Yes, it absolutely exists.
Thank you. Chris, how about you?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yeah.
Adrian?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Sadara?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
All right. Next question. Also, going to give you a choice here. Choose one. All lives matter or Black Lives Matter? Adam?
Black Lives Matter.
Sadara?
Black Lives Matter.
Nicole?
Black Lives Matter.
Adrian?
All lives matter.
Daniel?
All lives matter.
Randy?
Boy, that's a hard one. All lives do matter, but I understand Black Lives Matter in this context.
All right. So choose one, Randy. They're running for Congress in the great state of Utah. Who are you voting for? You're on mute, Randy.
Black Lives Matter.
Thank you, sir. Chris?
Black Lives Matter.
Tanya?
All lives matter.
All right. Next question. Yes or no? Is property more valued than Black lives? Tanya?
Absolutely not.
Chris?
No.
Randy?
No.
Daniel?
Never.
Adrian?
No.
Nicole? You're on mute, Nicole. Sadara, let's go to you while Nicole gets unmuted.
Valued or valuable?
Valued.
Yes.
Okay. Adam?
Yes.
Nicole? You're still on mute, Nicole.
Yes.
All right. All right, so that's our rapid questions. This was going to give us a little more detail. So briefly, guys, tell us, what do you think about where we stand today and what is going on? Overall thoughts, everything that's going on. We're going to start with Adrian on this one.
Well, with everything going on, it's just chaos, absolute chaos. To me, I agree with freedom of speech. I agree with freedom to protest. I agree with making a stand. I don't agree with destruction.
Okay. All right. Daniel, let's come to you.
I respect the right to protest, the right to express yourself, your opinions and your values. But I draw the line when property is destroyed, businesses are destroyed, lives are impacted, people are assaulted and even killed. You know, there's got to be a line drawn.
Okay. Sadara, what are your overall thoughts?
My overall thoughts are that history is repeating itself, and we're seeing outcry in many forms, some of which I endorse and some I do not. But the impetus has a long history, and I understand it. I understand why we're seeing it in all forms.
Okay. Adam? You're on mute, Adam.
Ask me that question again.
Yeah, no problem. The question is tell us, what do you think about where do you stand today with what is going on? Your overall thoughts.
Boy, that's complicated. I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding of reactions across the board, and that's one of the reasons that I came on the show here is because of that. I don't want to say any more than that, because if I get started on anything else, I'll take up all your time.
Okay. All right. We'll get more into it. Nicole, how about you?
I think that people get it how they live. You know, I think that there were lines drawn in the sand, and I think that if you hit me and I react, you should be okay with whatever the reaction is. And I think that as a people, we've been being hit for a really, really long time. And so now we're just starting to use the models that we're given.
Okay. Tanya, you're off camera. Hopefully you're still there. What are your thoughts?
I'm here. I'm just trying to multitask. Hang on just a second. My husband didn't know I was on here. Hold on.
All right, okay, Chris, let's come.
I'm good. My opinion, what I think about what's going on is, I understand people being angry. I 100% agree with protesting. I will stand hand in hand with anybody in protest, because what has happened, what has continued to happen, is there's just no justifying it. I do not agree with destroying property. I do not agree with looting. I do not think that a lot of those people that were running away with property, and it wasn't just, I don't know why this seems to set people off, because it's not like it was just Black individuals that were looting. There were a lot of looters out there. I don't agree with looting. I don't agree with burning their own city down. I don't agree with burning down all the stores in the neighborhood that somebody's grandmother's not going to be able to go buy bread tomorrow. I think that that's taking it too far. Do I understand why they're angry? Yes. But I do believe that somehow we all have to come together to try to, and I realize it hasn't happened up until this point, and that's why people are angry. So I get that. I was angry when I saw what happened to Mr. Floyd. So I understand the anger, but I can't in any way endorse the destruction. It just makes no sense to me because they're hurting themselves. They're not just hurting white people or cops. They're hurting themselves, and it makes there's zero logic in that to me.
Okay. All right, Chris, how about you?
I think it's been a long time coming. I think someone alluded to it earlier that history is kind of repeating itself. And I think that's the case. I think people are tired. People are fed up. I also think there's a lot of confusion. I think there's also a lot of misinformation out there. I think there's a lot of opportunists out there that are taking advantage of this situation. But I still think it fails. It falls in comparison to what the overall situation is. Like, I agree with everyone. I understand that, some people are going to feel a certain kind of way about looting and destruction of property. And I understand that. But I think people have to understand that sometimes through chaos, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen that we're not going to be comfortable with, but never lose sight of what the real issue is.
Great. I'm going to jump in here for a second and just kind of progress our conversation along. Something I find interesting is some throughout the questions that have been asked thus far have alluded to some of the issues that is going on and beyond looting, beyond protesting. I've actually heard, and this isn't to call anyone out by any means, just to make a point. I heard George Floyd's name mentioned one time, right? And I think something that people fail to realize, and not everyone, of course, is this is a long time coming. We've been smacked in the face and turned to the other cheek and been smacked again and been smacked again and been smacked again. I'm not quite sure what the expectation really is, right? And there's people on this call that's on different sides of the table, and that's great, and that's what we wanted. So my question is to those who feel that protesting may have some negative ideas on protesting, some negative ideas on looting, some negative ideas, period, on what's going on in today's world. My question today is the same question I had when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, and that is, what is the right way? Because all I've been hearing is that's not the right way to do things. So my question is, someone help me understand what the right way is. So anyone that want to take that question that feels that, Tanya, great, your hand's up, we're going to come to you. So anyone that feels that these things are the wrong way, please enlighten me on what the right way is. Something that's going to grab attention, is going to make change, not just make us just turn the other cheek and get smacked around some more for another couple hundred years. Tanya.
Okay, so I want to touch on two things first.
Mm-hmm.
You pointed out because I had mentioned Mr. Floyd. The reason I mentioned him is because that was the trigger.
No,
that was
yes,
the trigger
you're right.
that led to the circumstances that we're at. Just like it's been a trigger every time a Black person has been assaulted or killed by anyone, the ones that's been in the mainstream media is what I mean. So for one thing that stands out to me is every time something happens, there's this huge hype, and then you don't hardly ever hear anything. So I'm going to speak from my experiences. I have 2 autistic children, like I said. I know discrimination. I know what discrimination looks like. I do not know what racism looks like. I do to a point because I have my step-grandfather was Black. So we had some battles there because, it was quite a few years ago. Anyway, so I'm going to speak from a discrimination viewpoint. My son was assaulted by his bus driver, broke his arm. He was the only one on the vehicle when he was assaulted, him, the bus driver, and an aide. My son was called a liar. He broke his own arm. Get the hell out of here with that. He didn't break his own arm. So the next thing I know, the school wanted to put my son into a residential facility for disabled children. And I said, wait a minute. I don't have no trouble with my child because you guys don't know how to treat him in a respectful manner. You want to take him away from me? Oh, no. So I organized. So I understand protest. I support that. I organized. I contacted my politicians. I contacted the media. I was prepared to set up a protest. In the end, the school backed down. But I stayed steadfast with it. I didn't just, and this is something that went on for over a year's time. Okay. Granted, I know that's not what you're, you know, what you can't talk to me right now, honey. Hold on. I understand that that's nowhere near what Black people have gone through. What I'm saying is there's always this big hype and all these protests and all these, like, the riots and things like that. Not every time, but you know, this is not the first time that cities have been burned down because of this issue. So, okay, so everybody's listening to you right now. I think they still would have listened with just protests. I don't believe it was necessary to burn down our own country. That's just ridiculous. But you can't just push a topic when it's in the media right then. You got to stay steadfast and bring yourself to the news positively. You know, I don't want to be misunderstood, so I'm trying to censor how I say things because I don't want anything. So far, every time I have tried to have a conversation with someone, my words have gotten twisted. You hear a lot of negative about Black people in the media, and that's not okay. That's not okay. And you don't, you know, they didn't put the bus driver's name in the paper when he broke my son's arm. But if he'd have been Black, I believe it would have. It would have been a big deal. We live in a predominantly white area of the country. It just is because where we live in cow country. We got more cows than people. But rioting doesn't give good light to the situation. All it does is cause more anger. It causes more fighting. It causes more people to get hurt. On top of that, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So,
all right, so Tanya, I'm going to jump in because I personally feel we're getting a little off topic, but there's a couple of listeners that have something to say. One person says, there comes a point when we need to stop talking about looting and start talking about more serious issues like innocent people getting killed over and over. Someone else, I'll share, and it kind of alludes to what you said, Tanya. Someone says, the white privilege that you agreed on in the beginning may be the reason why you don't understand or agree with the rioting or looting. Anyone has anything to say in regards to what Tanya said? Maybe a difference of opinion? I saw Adam's hand. I see Randy will come to you as well.
I don't know if this really differs with what Tanya was saying, but I just want to say that as far as your question, how to do it, Colin Kaepernick did it the right way. I completely agree with him, but I will say that in the moment when I first found out about it, I did not. But I didn't react in haste, and that's the problem from that point. From that point with what Kaepernick did, from that point to now, is where people have misunderstood what's going on and have made it about their own pain instead of about the cause. Kaepernick did it the right way. It didn't work because here we are again. So the riots are I don't condone rioting. I don't condone looting, but the majority of those people are like somebody said earlier, are opportunists. Those are already criminals that are doing the majority of those folks. You know, I mean, you've seen the Antifa out there doing their thing. You know, it's instigators trying to divide even more. Okay, and people aren't paying attention to that part of it. They say it's all left or all right, and it's not. It's all criminal versus a bunch of good people.
Okay.
All right. Before you go to Randy, I'm sorry. Before you go to Randy, you brought up Colin Kaepernick. That was over 2 years ago when Colin Kaepernick, who has his pulse on the streets, it was 4 years ago, excuse me.
Yeah,
he had his pulse on the streets, knowing that it was about to simmer over to a situation like this. So what he did is that he just took a simple gesture. Now, prior to that, a lot of people didn't know that Colin Kaepernick was Black. The name Kaepernick, if I'm not mistaken, I believe is Hispanic, and he if you go through his history, you'll see that he was adopted and all of these other things in his story. But when we were getting to this point where it was like, okay, you know what, we want to talk about this. Things are not going well. You know what, let's come up to a solution. And then over the last 4 years, how many different situations have occurred across the country? Police brutality, police cover-ups when it comes to, people being assaulted, things of that nature. So 4 years ago, we were coming to the table saying, hey, let's do something about this situation before it spills over. Exactly. And now that it's spilled over, and pardon the expression, but now people are just looking befuddled like, well, why are they so upset? Well, when Colin Kaepernick wanted to go take a knee, you guys sat around there and when I say you guys, it's a general term, it's nobody specific, but people in general who think that we just all of a sudden out of nowhere, this just happened. The Vice President of the United States, Michael Pence, if I'm not mistaken, during a football game, got up and left when those players took a knee. Earlier this week, he just agitated me so badly. Now he's talking about, oh, we stand with America. Hey, this is an injustice. But you walked out at the beginning of the movement when somebody was trying to let you know, hey, this is an issue.
Yep. And before we move on to Randy, there's and we're coming to you after Randy, we're coming to you, Adrian. Someone said something on the post that I think is worth mentioning, and I'm going to read it verbatim. Why are we so hyper-focused on the rioting? We, in parentheses, white people, are directing our focus in the wrong direction. What do you, just briefly, what do you guys feel about that? And then we're going to go to Randy and then Adrian. Do we feel that the focus is from some white people? Do we feel that the focus is directed on rioting and not on what people of color feel like the true reasoning is, Nicole?
I think absolutely it's easier for white people to focus on the rioting because it's apparent. It's making it so they can't shop where they want to shop, or that they can't shop at all. It's in their faces. It's the easiest thing to address, instead of saying, I've never had an opportunity, or I've never taken an opportunity to make a real change in my own life, in my own lifestyle, in the way that I think, in the way that I behave. I forget the panelist's name, but comparing racism to discrimination against a disabled child is not the same. And that mindset is why we're still here. It's not Colin Kaepernick in his kneeling didn't begin this movement, though Colin Kaepernick caught hell, and it's only now that we have a mirrored opposite image of somebody else kneeling that people are burning up shit, right? So we're burning up things, but burning up is not new. Where was all of this? Well, that's not necessary when there were crosses burning in the houses, in the front yards of Black people everywhere. Where was the outcry from the white population, from the white community then? This is not different. It's just different now because we're burning up stuff in their neighborhoods. We're burning up the police stations. Dr. Martin Luther King knelt. We all knelt. We prayed. We tried protests that were nonviolent. We did. We gave that a shot. That's just not working. So now we're here. And now we are using the tools that are at our disposal, and they just happen to be bats and boots and bricks and signs and songs and poems. And they are whatever we can use because we're trying to figure out a way to get your attention in the same way that you got ours before. Yep. So if white people largely would be a part of the conversation when we're not breaking up stuff, like if all of the people that are well-meaning would go to a SURJ meeting, social, something, it's a white group for white people to talk to other white people about racism, SURJ, right? If white people would talk to other white people about racism before we got here, we wouldn't be here as much. So that's my 2 cents about that.
I appreciate that, Nicole. And I want to say something. And, we're live on Facebook, and I may get some backlash to what I'm going to say, but I'm a firm believer. If you believe in something, you stand up for it. Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent by the vast majority, you got to stand for something or fall for anything. We've heard that many of times. Tanya has fallen out of this conversation. So many people I've approached about this conversation. I see so many people online, on Facebook, social media platforms, different ones, talking against what's going on today. I make no bones about it. I'm pro Black Lives Matter, period, end of discussion. But I want to give a platform for all people to have a conversation so we can get to the root. What I find is, and I'm just going to be honest, I'm going to throw this out there. And Daniel, Adrian, you guys kind of have some views that are, you guys both said all lives matter. I appreciate you guys stepping up, being on the show, talking about it. It's kind of the unpopular opinion right now. There's so many cowards out there. I'm just going to call it the way it is. And once again, this is what I believe. This is my truth. There's so many cowards out there that can sit on Facebook and sit on other social media platforms and talk about, this, that, and the other that's against, and talk down on what other people believe in. Black Lives Matter. They're cowards. They won't come forward and talk about it out in public. So my question to you is, those people, and for Tanya, who just dropped off, the fire was getting a little hot for her, I guess. So she had to run off, just like all the other cowards who couldn't accept an invitation to join this call. Why can't you face us? Why can't you face what we have to say? Is it in deep in your heart that you understand that you are wrong? Is that what it is? I would love an answer. Tanya, you say you do not have a bone in your body that's going to run from an argument. You just ran, young lady. You just ran. So all the cowards out there that can't stand up and say something, please sound off if you're listening. And you had a platform to come on here and talk about it, but you chose to run as well. So I'm sorry to jump off on that, but it's frustrating as hell when people want to say all lives matter, but they don't want to come on here and say why. They don't want to face a panel of other people who believe otherwise. Someone just said, and it's too far up the post, and Adrian, I'll come to you. They just said it's too far out for us to find, but they said all lives matter, saying that is like someone's house being on fire, and we've heard this analogy. Someone's house is on fire. Nicole, help me out here, because I don't know it verbatim. I'm not sure if you do, but help me out here.
If saying all lives matter is like saying all of the houses, the fire department should come and spray all of the houses, but only one house is actually on fire.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Adrian, what you got? And then we're going to move on to the next question.
All right. The reason I stand with All Lives Matter is I am from the Cuban descent. Okay. My parents immigrated to this country because we were being killed. We were taking our freedom of speech, our freedom to protest, our freedom of free government. Okay. We couldn't fight. We had to flight. Okay. One of the reasons I say all lives matter is because we also have been discriminated. We have also faced a lot of scrutiny and a lot of issues that has not made media. Okay. But again, going back to it, all lives do matter. Every single individual's life matters. No one should be killed, should be beaten because they don't agree, okay, with your stand, or police brutality. I completely am against it. It doesn't matter if they're black, they're white, they're Cuban, Asian, whatever they are. If it is brutality, it is wrong.
Jump in.
Yeah. Go ahead, Daniel.
To piggyback off of my man right there, I'm Puerto Rican. I'm first generation New Yorican. I was born in New York, raised in New York. Both of my parents are from the island of Puerto Rico. I know exactly what he was talking about as far as the Cuban regime during the Castro days, and still what's going on over there. And, the thing is that all lives do matter, because the same things that minorities were going through in the mainland U.S., us Puerto Ricans were going through under Spain. And then after 1899, we got the same treatment under the United States of America. So still to this day, we don't have a country of our own. Puerto Rico is a possession of the United States. We are not independent, and we're still owned. I mean, we can't even have shipments that come directly to our island, and it affects our economy. And if you want, you can look it up yourself. But, you know, since 1492, the country has not been, you know, owned by us, by its own people. So, you know, that's why all lives do matter, because when Puerto Ricans were coming here to the mainland U.S., Schomburg, Professor Albizu Campos, they were ridiculed. They were locked up without due process. They were tortured with radiation. The massacre of in Puerto Rico in San Juan, where people who were protesting in broad daylight were shot in point blank range for just protesting against the United States. It was illegal to carry our flag, our own flag. You had 10 years of automatic jail time without due process, without nothing, if you were caught in possession of the Puerto Rican flag, if you hung the flag, if the flag was in the house, if you said anything against the United States or there was pro-independence, we were locked up. So, you know, we too have our struggles. You know, we have come a long way, you know. So, you know, it's not just blacks, but Hispanics too. And, you know, when we moved to Brooklyn, I was always picked on because all the black kids thought that I was white. And I was getting bullied left and right. They never thought that somebody Puerto Rican can look like me. You know, it's like you got to have an accent, or you got to be 5 feet tall to be Puerto Rican, you know. But it's like, you know, after a while, when they got to know who I was, we all got along. But perception, people prejudge. And the thing is that prejudice comes from everybody, not just one minority group, not just one set of group. Everybody has their own views on what other people are or how other people are. The only way to get out there and feel comfortable is by reaching across the table and getting to know your neighbor. You know what I'm saying? Working with them. So,
right.
But yeah, I say all lives matter. I'm sorry.
No problem. I'm going to jump in here. Yep, definitely, Chris. 1 second. Someone on Facebook said, but your race isn't making your life harder. It's not something we even have to think about most of the time. I know Chris and Sadara. Sadara had her hand up first. Let's go to Sadara, Chris, and we'll come to you.
Okay.
I think that, well, first of all, let me thank those of you that are willing and have the courage to explain why you stand behind the belief that all lives matter. I think that the disconnect is that when some of us hear the term Black Lives Matter, we interpret it as if the person who's saying that is saying only Black Lives Matter. And that is not what's being said. You have to put this into the context of what we're seeing right now in our country, but also the history of our country as it relates to Black people. There is a disproportionality of disenfranchisement on every single level for African Americans in this country. And the sheer color of skin is enough to funnel us into that category. And so when you have a whole movement that is saying Black Lives Matter, it is not to say we don't care about anyone else's lives or the unfortunate experiences of all the other cultures that have experienced it. We acknowledge that. But I want to go back to what you were asking before about the proper way, because if the proper way is not what's happening now, and the proper way is not to say that Black Lives Matter, the question is, what is the proper way? Well, we've taken all of those channels, because some would say that it's legislation. Some would say that it is advocacy. Some would say that it is calling on elected officials. Some would say that it's the law. There's a whole host of things and avenues and methodologies that everyone could argue are the proper channels instead of what's happening right now. But all of those channels have been taken, and still, we are disproportionately affected by racism in this country. And when you do all of the studies, whether they be educational, whether they be economic, or every other classification, you will still find African Americans at the bottom of the barrel.
Chris, you had something you want to say?
Well, no, the young lady just said it all.
Okay.
I said it much better than I would have. The only thing I would say is, again, just to kind of reiterate, when we're saying Black Lives Matter, we're saying Black Lives Matter also, right? That's the point that we're trying to get across, because I think we can all acknowledge that all lives in this country are not treated equally. And that's just the truth. That's just the truth of it. So when we're saying Black Lives Matter, we're not saying that our lives are the only ones that matter. We're saying we matter also, and we should be treated equally also. Our life should be valued just as much as the next person's life should be valued. A fireman, a policeman, a whoever it is, everybody's life is valuable. Your life should not be any more valuable than mine because of your occupation, because of your age, because of your race, because of your gender. All lives should be treated equally. But as we know, that has not been the case. That's why you've had women's rights movements. That's why you've had civil rights movements. That's why you had people had to fight and die on the front line to secure our place in this country. But we're still fighting those same fights today. And not just African Americans, Latinos, everyone is still fighting that same fight. But when we say the Black Lives Matter, we're just saying our lives matter also, and we want to be treated equally.
You know
Great
what,
point, Chris.
To sum it up, Chris, Black lives matters too. Asian lives matters too. Puerto Rican lives matters too. Women's lives matters too. Men's lives matters too. So I totally agree with everything that you just said. Maybe folks would just stop being so sensitive and they'll realize that our lives matters too. So it's not that we're just taking a stance that it's just like Black lives are held into a higher regard than anybody else's. But me as an African American, that's all I know is that my life matters. I'm not saying that anybody else's life doesn't matter, but my life matters too. So why shouldn't I be upset when I feel that, I'm being overlooked? So I didn't mean to chime in, James. My apologies.
No, you're good. You're good.
I
That was question number 4, y'all. We said we have 15 questions. There ain't no way we're going to get through them all, but we're going to do the best we can. So great conversation. It truly is. I see a bunch of hands waving. Eric, it's up to you. Do you want to table this for a second, or do you want to move on to the next question? Your call, sir. You're in charge.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to table this for a moment. Now, we will get back to that. So if anybody has anything that they may want to say, hey, jot it down on a piece of paper. When we give everybody a chance to do a closing remark, please feel free doing your closing remarks. My question that I have is, what changes do we need to make as a country on our law enforcement policies as far as arrest? Randy, we're going to go ahead and go to you, our resident political analyst, I guess we could say. So what sort of changes do you think that we can implement, to prevent these types of things from happening?
Well, hey, a couple of things. Let me go back. I do want to just go back to the last thing. First of all, I want to make clear that first question that you asked about that property is never more valuable than a human life, never. Number two, here's an experience that I had that I think will relate to this. As I was campaigning, I met with our Black Caucus, and I was proud to go in there and say, hey, I don't see color. And Eric, you're my friend. I see you as a brother. And I don't see you as a Black person. I see you as another person, my friend, my brother. And boy, I got schooled on that. And I understand why. Because if I say I don't see color, then that means I really don't see the discrimination that happens in this country. And I understand that now. I absolutely understand that. Eric, I still don't see you as a Black man, but I do see Black people, and I understand that there is a problem there. I absolutely do. And I got to say one other thing before we get to this, the police thing. This is part of that. When we elected Barack Obama, I thought, oh my goodness, look at what's happened to this country. We have finally made it. We have a Black man as the president of the United States, the most powerful position in the world. And then when the election of Donald Trump happened, I thought, what has happened to this country? Here is a racist. When he was challenging the birth certificate of Barack Obama, that was pure racism. When he said in the happenings in Charlottesville that there were fine people on both sides, when he is saying the neo-Nazis are fine people, in this country, we have a deeper problem than maybe people will realize. How could this person, Donald Trump, be elected when he's verbally and right out there in front of everyone saying such racist comments? It embarrasses me. It embarrasses me that he is the president of our country. And until we change the presidency of this country, I don't know how we're going to fix this problem. But back to this police thing. Absolutely. There needs to be more diversity training, more all kinds of training with the police force on how to deal with people of different cultures, all kinds of different cultures. But you know what? It's got to go deeper than that. We have got to come in this country to realize that there are good and bad people of every culture, of every race, and to quit judging people by their race. And we do that, and cops do it, and people who weren't cops do it. And I don't know what it's going to take to get to that point, but we got to get Donald Trump out of office. That's my political statement.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Daniel, your thoughts?
Question? I'm sorry.
That's okay. No worries. And then we do want to try to keep our responses maybe like 3 or 4 minutes, because we've got a lot of people who want to get their opinions in. No, I'll repeat it for you. What changes do you think we need to make as a country to our law enforcement arrest policies?
I tell you what, before we take it to law enforcement, I think coming from my background, single parent, most of my childhood, I think it all starts at the home. The authority figure, the male figure. There's a lot of fathers that don't want to, they like making babies, but don't like to take care of them. And women stay behind and take care of the family. And if the women don't take care of the family, the grandparents, who are usually too old and it's a burden for them, they wind up taking care of the family. I think it all starts at home. There's no authority at the household. And with school, same thing. A lot of school now, administrators and stuff, they lay off the kids. They're easy going on the kids. Kids nowadays, they can get away with pretty much anything. They don't know how to deal with authority. That's the problem. So when you deal with an officer, someone of authority, you feel kind of intimidated. You don't know what to do or how to handle it. And but us Hispanics, we also go through the same thing. We need the father figure to be at the house. We need that male role model to take care of the family. And if you want to be heard about a movement, if you want other people from other places to understand where you're coming from and take you seriously, you can't be hypocritical about it. Because Planned Parenthood kills over 250,000 minority babies every year.
Daniel,
and Planned Parenthood is in predominantly minority neighborhoods. You don't see Planned Parenthood,
Well, Daniel, pardon the interruption, but the question was stated that what should we do as a country in terms of policy as far as, arrest policies? And I definitely understand what you're saying, and all of the points that you made were valid.
Okay.
But what are we going to do as a country in terms of the arrest policies? So meaning the things that happened to, Mr. Floyd.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, behavior and crime is what should determine how you get dealt with. Not because you look a certain way. There's rotten apples in every profession, and they should be dealt with and weeded out, because they make a lot of people look bad. But there's the majority of law enforcement are good people. But yeah, I agree that one thing, some type of classes, some type of courses, so people that have never come across different races or people from different ethnic backgrounds can feel comfortable and know how to communicate with the communities they're policing. That'll be great. I think it closes the gaps, it builds the bridges, and it builds a solid level of understanding.
I'm going to jump in real quick here. Social media is, a couple people have asked, they wanted to hear from Adam on this. Before we throw it over to Adam and give the people what they're asking for, I want to throw something out here. Daniel, I understand what you're saying. One thing I'll add, though, is I heard a gentleman, and I forget his last name, forgive me, Emmanuel something. He's on ESPN. He just put something out today. I think it was today on Twitter, at least I saw it today. And he said something that was profound. He said, Black people have to be conscious of each and every one of our actions from the moment we step out the front door. And that is so freaking profound that if we can disagree if we want, but I think it'd be difficult to disagree with someone that you're not. And I can attest to that. I never really thought about it that way, but it's 100% true. When I get pulled over by the police, I'm very conscious of what I'm doing with my hands. I don't want to give them a reason to do anything to not allow me to come home to my family. And we have to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there might be some people on this panel that cannot relate to that, and that's okay. But that is the mind of a Black person. We have to be conscious of every one of our actions all the time when we're not in the privacy of our own home. And that's not freedom of living. That's not something that a lot of people have to deal with, and that's not fair. Adam, once again, people want to hear from you. So Eric, excuse me for jumping in, but my producer just passed that information over to me.
All right, no problem. So Adam, go ahead, and Adrian, I see that you got a question, so we're going to go ahead and get to you, and I definitely want to hear from the ladies on this. But Adam, go ahead, please, and then Adrian, we're going to follow up with you, and then we're going to go to the two ladies. We're going to do Nicole, and then we're going to do Ms. Devonna. Adam, go ahead. Adam, we can't hear you, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I think Daniel and Randy hit it on the head as far as the training goes. But I don't know absolutely, because I've never been trained in the police force, so I don't know what kind of training that they go through. Okay. So the only thing that I can say about that is when somebody commits a crime, you hold them accountable regardless of profession. If they're a cop and they kill somebody, then an investigation takes place. Okay. Now, so many times what has gone on in this country is that a white cop kills a Black person and they find no fault, even though everything points to fault. And you can even go to the situation that happened in Minneapolis years ago in regards to a Black cop killing a white woman and a white cop killing a Black man within the span of a month, and the white cop got off, even though the family of the Black person that was killed got $3 million. Okay, now the Black cop that killed the white woman got 12 years in prison, and the white family got $20 million. Okay, so that's not equal justice, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the justice system failing to hold police officers accountable for what they're doing equally. That's the problem.
Adam, you just went mute again.
Did you get all of it?
Not the last 30 seconds, but I think we got the gist.
No, I heard everything you said, Eric. You may have faded out. Yep.
Okay.
All right, so let's move it along. Eric, what you got next? Who's coming up next to speak? What you got?
Adrian.
Okay. So I just wanted to touch bases, James, on something you just said about if you get pulled over by a police officer. I am pretty much, I'm not going to say in the same boat as you, but I am very respectful in the sense of when I know they're pulling me over, they're calling in your tag, they see my last name. It's a Hispanic last name. So a lot of times, depending on what area of the country you're in, you may be facing, someone that is not for Hispanics. So what I do as a courtesy and as a safety measure is turn on my light, interior light if it's at night, keep my hands on the steering wheel until he comes up. And then once he or she comes up to the window, then I follow their direction. So, I mean, I understand what the point that you're making, but it's also a matter of, you have to understand they're trying to get home also to their family. If they see someone fidgeting in a car or their hands are not visible, they have to proceed with absolute precaution.
And I understand that, Adrian. I'm going to be very brief in my response. Philando Castile did not do anything that was out of the ordinary for anyone. But guess what? He's not here to listen to this conversation today. He was lawfully carrying a gun, told the officer that he was carrying a gun, told the officer where it was, and he is still shot dead in cold blood as well. And what happened with that officer? Absolutely nothing. So, I mean, I forgive me for understanding, but still feeling like you don't get what I'm saying. So I don't want to leave it at that. Eric, who's moving on next?
Nicole, please.
I have a plethora of things to say, but as Sadara is an attorney, I'm going to defer my time to her. I think her contribution to this segment of the conversation will be much more valuable.
All right, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nicole. I think there are a number of different things that can be done, all of which would be valuable. My opinion is that we have to deal with the issue of qualified immunity for police officers, because it is what allows them to feel that they are empowered to do whatever it is that they feel is appropriate or inappropriate in the moment without facing consequences. Simple as that for me. The fact that we have allowed them to feel empowered to be reckless, to lack judgment, to lack professionalism, to lack humanity, and still be protected by the badge, protected by the department, protected by the union, is where we're going wrong.
Sadara, it's interesting you say that. And Eric, I'm going to jump in for very quickly here. It's interesting you say that. On this panel, there are, let me look here, 1, 2, 3, 4, including myself, there's 5 of us that live here in Atlanta. During a protest against police brutality, we just had 2 police officers that were fired for using excessive force during a protest. So there, I think you hit the nail right on the head. They feel invincible. And I'm not saying everyone. I'm not saying everyone's bad that wears a badge or carry a gun. I'm not saying that. But they feel invincible. They feel protected by the badge. They feel protected that nothing is going to happen to them, and they can completely get away with it. I hate to say this, but I really do believe, had we not been going through this unrest period, that they probably still would be on the job. You know, it's only because of what we're going through that they were terminated from their position. But they and for anyone that doesn't know this story, 2 college students, Morehouse University and Spelman, I believe the young lady attends, was in a car. The police stopped them and they busted their windows, slashed their tires, and tased them. You know, and drugged the young man out of the car, and he ended up having a seizure from the situation. Luckily, the very next day they were terminated. But that's a bit much, especially during this time. You really did not feel like you, as my mother used to say, you think your shit don't stink. That's what my mother used to always tell me, and that's exactly what they felt like. Eric, I'm sorry to step on your toes. Please continue.
No, that's all right. It's funny that this actually leads into my next question. If a law enforcement officer kills a citizen and it's not necessary, or basically the officer's life isn't in danger, what consequences should the police face? Like, I'll give my opinion on it because this is something I feel very strongly on it, and then I will give the floor. Ms. Devine, I think we're going to go ahead and start with you on this one. I feel that if an officer kills a citizen and it's unjustifiable, I believe that officer should get the death penalty. I don't think that I don't think it should have any local ties at all. He should immediately be removed from wherever the crime was committed, and he should go to another area. And I think he should be tried, and I think he should be executed. If he feels he can take a life, then he should be willing to give his own life up. So, Divine, we'll go ahead and start with you. And Adrian, I see you.
There are a host of people that would agree with you. Absolutely. I think that, of course, they should be terminated from employment without benefits after that point, right? Because even some police officers who are terminated from their employment, they continue to receive benefits for retirement and medical care and all of those kinds of things. So all of those things should end effective immediately. And I think that they should be brought up on charges immediately. One of the other things that I'm constantly thinking about is arrest equity, right? The idea that if I can be arrested for this, you can be arrested for this. And the fact that you're a police officer doesn't mean that you cannot be. And so if Black people can be held to this standard where we are arrested and detained on just a suspicion, maybe not even a reasonable suspicion, maybe there's no probable cause, maybe it's just a hunch, maybe it's just the way that that officer feels that day. If a Black person or another person of color can be arrested under those circumstances, then so should a police officer. So what do I think should happen? At minimum, termination from employment, arrest and prosecution immediately. Not a full-fledged investigation to decide whether or not we should arrest you, because many of us know that in order to make an arrest, all you need is probable cause. You don't need a full-fledged investigation and evidence at that point necessarily. The reason that they do is because they have immunity.
And just a kind of a follow-up question, do you feel that the reason why a lot of these officers are getting off is because the investigations are being performed by people that are within their community? So maybe they've got a blind eye to what really happened due to personal relationships?
Absolutely, they give deference. Absolutely, I do. They give deference.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Adrian, we're gonna go ahead and go to you. I saw you had your hand up.
Yes, sir. I actually want to piggyback off what she said, and I absolutely agree. As the people that enforce the laws and you know and are supposed to keep justice, I feel that they should be held double accountable, not just simply you take a life. I feel that no question asked, if you are found guilty of it, it should be the maximum sentence, period. No questions asked. You are trained to basically protect and serve. Let's just say what it is. You are here to protect and serve. You are not here to take advantage of the power that you have. Okay? Another thing that I feel is that our police officers are not properly trained in laws. I don't think they actually know a lot of the laws, and we see it constantly with a lot of mistrials and so forth for incidents where police officers interpret the law in one way when it's supposed to be the other.
You know what, I'm going to have to disagree with that, because the policeman's job is to arrest and detain. They should have an interpretation of the law. If they see a crime is committed or if a crime is reported, they're responsible for arresting and detaining. So I do think that they have a good measure of what the law is. Hell, they just ignore it. They ignore it because they've been getting away with it so long that they don't feel that there's any consequences. It's just till recently, and Ms. Nicole, I see you, we're going to get to you in 1 second. But it's just recently now that with all of the anger and stuff that's came out, now people are actually doing the job that they were trained to do. And then one last question, Adrian, before I get to Nicole, and I would just like a yes or no on this. Do you think that an officer who did what they did to George Floyd, should they get the death penalty?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Nicole, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I was just gonna say, one, you did ask me, but I agree about the death penalty too. Put that out there. Mm-hmm. But I was also gonna say, in the way of a possible answer about the recruitment methods. You know, you hear a lot of generational, my father was a policeman, my grandfather was a policeman, and all of these generational sets of ideas about how to treat Black people are indoctrinated and just brought down from generation to generation, right? So if the recruitment efforts can be more concerted into places where African Americans live. Start recruiting at the Morehouses, at the Spelmans, at the HBCUs of the country, and change the way the perception is, you know, and try to get more people that look like the people that they're going to be policing. Because I'm not gonna lie, I don't want you to police me. You don't know enough about me to police me. You know, you don't know enough about how I'm talking to my kids to know that this is abuse, as opposed to how I love them. This is our love language right here. But you don't know that because you don't talk like me, you don't sound like me, and you don't live where I live. So you can't police me because you don't know the laws that govern me, you know, my personal body. So I just wanted to talk about recruitment efforts and the way of a part of the solution.
One thing I'll throw in also, and Eric, I'm not sure if you're going to go to someone else after this. We talk about training, and I do believe that there should be additional training, most definitely. But my question is, and it's rhetorical, what training is out there to tell someone don't profile a person of color? What training is out there to say don't put your knee in the back of someone's neck for 9 minutes? What training is out there for that? And once again, it's rhetorical, or as people say nowadays, I'm asking for a friend. Eric, what's next? Are we moving to the next question, or you got something else?
I wanted to get Randy's opinion on that, then Chris, and then I'm going to move on to the next question. So Randy, we're going to start with you.
Yes. Boy, I'm going to go back to what I said, because with the election of Donald Trump, this has emboldened white supremacists who now believe they have more power in society, that they can become more visible. And this even infiltrates into police departments. And until we have a leader of this country that says, no more, this is no longer acceptable, I think we're going to be struggling with this. Racism is so deeply embedded with our history, with our society. And the only good thing that happened with the election of Donald Trump was that I think it awakened people. I think it awakened people to how serious this was. And I am heartened somewhat that he did not win the popular election. So, and until we get rid of this man at the top, I think it's going to be very difficult to address racism, because it's embedded in the presidency of the United States. And that really distresses me.
All right, very good. Thank you very much for that. Chris, your thoughts, and then we're going to move on.
I wanted to talk a little bit. I think one of the things we have to get rid of is this fraternity mindset. And I use that because, I come from a background of sports, and, I played college football, I played professional football. And one of the things that we always did was we isolated ourselves from the rest of campus, right? We were the football players and everybody else was for themselves. And we were here to protect the football players. And I got my brothers back. And I feel like that's the same thing that happens in a lot of organizations, especially with the police departments, is they isolate themselves and consider themselves to be their own unit. And I've got my brothers back, and I'm going to not hold you accountable for the things that I see you do, because I'm supposed to have your back. And I think one of the things that they need to stop doing is emphasizing this sort of fraternity, brotherhood, this blue wall of silence, that I'm going to have your back and protect you no matter what. Until police officers actually start policing themselves and holding each other accountable, I don't think we're going to see much of an issue change.
All right, thank you. And just one more thing, James, before I let you jump in. In terms of a recruitment of the police department, one thing that I noticed growing up is that we've got recruiting departments for just about, everything you want to think of in school. ROTC, for example, you get young men and women ready to go to the military. You very rarely see that for local police enforcement. So I think one of the things is, if you really want to get to the children and change the perception of how the police act, it starts in school, but not in the way that everybody is thinking. You need to get the police to have a better relationship with the public education sector, because the vast majority of the people who go out into the workforce, they go to public schools. And who's better to enforce the public and take pride in the public? You know, it's during the school system. So why are we putting a bigger emphasis? If you really want to stop this, why don't we start when they're babies, where we still have an opportunity to mold them and show them different things? Because when you're in school, there's different ethnicities within the majority of the school races. Even if one sector is predominantly, you know, take your ethnicity, but there are enough different ethnicities within the public school systems where everybody should be used to interacting with one another. And I think that's a start. So that's my 2 cents. James, I didn't mean to infringe on your time.
No, you're good. Before we move on, a listener on Facebook asked to hear Daniel's take on this question as well.
Okay, Daniel.
Where was I'm sorry, but what was the question again?
So if a law enforcement officer kills a citizen and it's not necessary, should they be tougher consequences than if they were a regular citizen?
I think the law should be applied universally across the board to everybody. It doesn't matter what position you hold as an occupation. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. Wrong is wrong, right is right. And it shouldn't be any preferential treatment because you hold a certain position. So, you know, if you're found to be wrong and found to be guilty, throw the book at him.
So basically, he should not be held to a higher standard. He or she should not be held to a higher standard.
You talking about anybody from law enforcement when they
yes.
Oh
yes.
There should be. How should I say? When you have that background, when you do that, you are the example. You're the walking, talking example. You have to lead, be a leader. You have to make the executive decisions. People depend on you to know better, to make the right choice. Is it a perfect world? You know, unfortunately, mistakes do happen. But if it's a mistake, let it be a mistake. You know, unfortunately, these mistakes sometimes can cost somebody their life. It's a very dangerous occupation. But if you are found to be miscarrying the law, using it for abusing the citizens or abusing your power, there should be no special treatment. You should be hung out to dry.
You know, so I'm just going to throw something in on that, Daniel, that I find pretty interesting. First off, our next episode in the Ear Hustling podcast, we have scheduled to speak to a retired member of law enforcement. And one of the major things we want to talk to that person about is how can we rebuild, or I'm not even rebuild, how can we build a relationship between law enforcement and the community? I can't say rebuild because that insinuates that it used to be a relationship, and it's always been a rocky one. So what can we do to build that relationship? So hopefully he's able to come onto the show to talk about that in detail. So this is something that's going to be carried on. Another thing someone mentioned I want to piggyback off on is talk about law enforcement in the schools. Anyone that has not heard, Minneapolis School District today just voted to end their contract with the Minneapolis Police Department. That's huge. They said their values does not align with what the values of the Minneapolis Police Department is. That's, once again, that just speaks volumes. And the third and final thing I'm going to say on this is, in talking with police officers, I have heard this. I've heard it with my own ears. Once again, I'll throw myself out there. For anyone that does not know, I used to be a volunteer police officer in the city of Detroit many years ago. It's called the Police Reserves. And during our version of the academy, when we went to the gun range, they emphasized in order to get our badge, we had to pass the shooting range. And what they told us, we had to hit center mass to pass, right? And the reason being, the exact words from the range officer was, it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. That's what is being taught to volunteer police officers. I can't imagine what method is being taught to regular officers as well. And I say that to say this. If pick any two people on this panel, if you're in a room together and one of you kill the other person, then guess what? We don't have testimony from the dead person. We only have testimony from the live person. We only have that statement. And a police officer, a badge, you're carrying a badge, you're carrying a gun, you have stature in the community. We're going to trust what you say, but it's your word versus no one's word. And it's not until recently that we start getting things on film. And as we see, we're still not getting justice, you know, and hopefully that this time is a little bit different. So I just wanted to throw that in there as well in conversation we had. So we're going to start moving things a little bit as well. Once again, we're at question number 7. We're probably not going to get through 15 once again. I'm just going to ask 2 people this question. If anyone else just really has something they want to say, we'll call upon you. But do you think, Daniel, I'm going to come to you on this one to start. Do you think the protests that are happening is for what happened to George Floyd?
No.
Okay. So elaborate on that. What do you think the protest is for?
Okay. I think that when the legit protesters are protesting. The thing is that, unfortunately, the protest itself has been hijacked by other forms of other groups, other anarchists, liberals who have used the protest and start to abuse it by causing the looting, by causing the fires, by taking action against police. I believe that, it's these people that are taking the protests and hijacking the meaning of it. And the thing is that the people protesting, there's even people that protesting are telling them, no, what are you doing? You're not, stop doing this. I mean, I've seen footage of white people spray painting BLM on property and other things. I mean, liberal whites are are hijacking this protest, so I think to a small number it is. But the thing is that a lot of people, you have the criminal element jumps on these opportunities to cause mayhem. And so
not thinking about them, Daniel, just thinking about the reason for the protest. Do you think that the reason for the protest all across the country today is for George Floyd specifically?
I don't think it's just for this situation. I think it's for a lot of situations in the past that's happened. The unfortunate mistakes that's happened, the unfortunate events.
Did you say mistakes?
Yes, there's been mistakes. There's been mistakes as well. I mean, like I said, as long as human beings do this job, there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be, unfortunately, things happen. I mean, we hold every professional, accountable. I mean, even doctors make mistakes, and they go through school for a long periods of time, many years, and they can still, they still make mistakes.
And I get what you're saying, Daniel. I truly do. I mistakenly forgot to pick up bread at the store. I don't see Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, Ahmaud Arbery, Philando Castile, Michael Brown, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Alton Sterling, George Floyd, and the list goes on. I don't see any mistakes in any of those cases. But I get what you're saying with the doctors, but I don't get, for Black Lives Matter, for these protests, for this anger, for this frustration, I don't see where there's mistakes. And if anyone can share one with me, I would love to hear that. And I'm not saying it's not, but I just love to hear it.
James, one thing. You say Black Lives Matter again. Okay.
I do.
And what I'm going to bring up is 2 officers were slain. They happen to be Black. One in California and another one in St. Louis, I do believe. The one in St. Louis had over 38 years, retired police chief. He was killed and murdered over a television set.
And George Floyd was killed over possibly a fake $20 bill.
And the other officer was killed in a drive-by shooting. Mm-hmm. Does their life matter any less because they were police officers?
You know what? Here's the thing, and let me jump in there for a second. It's unfortunate what happened with those police officers, but again, the saying that Black Lives Matter is being spoken from that of a Black man. If you were to tell me that Puerto Rican lives matter, I'm not Puerto Rican, but I know your life matters just as much as my life matters. So the Black Lives Matter movement, again, is not to single out anybody else. It's to highlight the fact that my life matters as much as your life matters. So, and just, again, I'm trying not to get emotional about this, but every time I hear somebody bring up, well, Black Lives Matter, yeah, you know, Black lives do matter. Like if it was a situation where a Puerto Rican was, had a situation where they had this sort of situation happen, and I'd be over there screaming, yeah, Puerto Rican lives matter. If that happened to a Caucasian, you know, in a Black neighborhood or a Puerto Rican neighborhood, and if they were not being treated the way they were supposed to be treated, their lives matter. Black lives matter, or whoever lives matters. It's situational. It's situational.
And
my situation is that I'm Black.
Yeah, and here's the thing on that, and I think this is the best way I'll try to explain it. I'm not going to use any fancy analogies or anything like that. We say all lives matter, and I get that. I truly do. But as it always is said, I don't know if anyone on this panel has heard this or any listeners heard it, all lives cannot matter until Black lives matter. Now, if Puerto Ricans want to say the same things, if Cubans want to say the same thing, if white people want to say the same thing, that's fine. But our case is pretty simple. Black lives does not matter at this point. So therefore, all encompasses everything. That's universal. And Black is a part of that. But you can't say that's now a false statement. All lives do not matter because Black lives do not matter. And as other people have said, it's also a Black Lives Matters too. In addition to other lives matter, Black Lives Matter, so don't leave us out. Don't say all, because what we're really saying is all lives matter except Black people. That's what it really says. And that's how we feel. So therefore, that's our truth. All right. So that's what needs to be addressed. And that's just my opinion on that. Adam, it looks like you have something to say. Adrian, I saw your hand up a little bit here. So let's go to Adrian and Adam, and then we'll move on.
So, James, in response to your question, yes, I do feel that, my predecessor was talking about the it being a lot of things. It's kind of like the analogy of a glass that dripping water, eventually it's going to overflow, and it's overflowed. The protest, I do find it to be because of how many years and how many incidents have happened. Okay. Again, also piggybacking off of him, there are opportunistic people that are taking advantage of these protests and making it a worse situation, okay, in the sense of the protest not being heard the way it should be.
But you know what? I think honestly, and I could be totally wrong on this, and I see two hands that we're going to get to. I personally believe it's a lot of deflecting, right? We talk about what the cause is. We come to people and we say, this is the problem. I feel this way. And then the receiver then takes that message and turns it into something else. Colin Kaepernick made it very clear why he was kneeling, but people made it about that piece of material that has red, white, and blue as colors. That's what they made it to be. But they didn't hear what he said it was about. The same holds true today. We're telling you what it is about, what Black Lives Matter is about is this, but people are receiving it and taking it to a different place. And that's a personal choice. I can't make anyone hear what I'm saying. I can say it, I can articulate it best way I can, and it's now up to you to receive that message and listen and take what I'm saying as I'm saying it, not to add to it and make it your story. This is my story. All right. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. Adam definitely had your hand up, and someone else. I can't remember who.
Yeah, everything that you just said, James, is right on the point. I really appreciate Daniel and Adrian given their thoughts on Cuba and Puerto Rico. That is something that gets missed for sure. But what James is talking about is exactly what this is about. You know, nobody was preaching all lives matter until somebody said Black Lives Matter. And the reason that they started that was because somebody got butthurt that they got left out. Well, if your people are getting crushed, then do something and start a movement, you know? And so that's what happened. Black people been getting crushed since the beginning. And so they're starting movements, you know, and trying to make a change. And we have to hear that and not hear any type of offense that goes with it, that you think goes with it. You have to listen to what they're saying and take that in. And it's just like there's a book called The 5 Love Languages, you know, and you can apply that book to any type of communication that you do in any type of relationship. We all have a way that we want to, or that we can receive information and want to receive information, just like we have our ways of the way we want to receive love. And we give love the way that we want to receive it. But it might not be the way that that person wants to receive it or can receive it. And the same holds true for communication. You have to be willing to understand where it's coming from so that you can receive it. It's that simple. And that's why I said in the beginning that there's too many misunderstandings and people are being reactionary from it instead of just listening to the person or the people that are in pain.
All right, Sadara, let's go to you, and then we're going to move on to the next question.
Thank you. The fact of the matter is that if all lives truly matter to us as a nation, we would never have to say Black Lives Matter. We would never have to make a distinction. We would never have to make a statement. We would never have to organize a movement. We would never have to make signs. There would never be a hashtag if in fact it was actually true and tangible that all lives matter. I want to also address the question of whether or not the protests are about George Floyd. Absolutely they are. In that what happened to him represents what has been happening for centuries. And I'm just going to be honest and say it's cowardice of us to zero in on looting of a television or looting of a pair of shoes. To minimize this movement to looting is to miss the entire point.
Agreed. All right, so I am going to jump ahead a little bit, and I have 2 more questions. It is really apparent that we're not going to get through everything. So I really would like to encourage everyone to commit to a part 2 to this discussion. It could definitely go on for a long time. I'm going to ask 2 more questions. Eric, whatever questions you have left that you want to ask, by all means. I'm just going to jump to my 2 really quick here. The first one is, we've heard his name several times. Number 45, Donald Trump. And my question is he uniting our country at this time? Daniel, I'm not sure exactly what you got going on there. Hopefully this don't turn into a Poor Jennifer video. If anyone saw it, has anyone seen Poor Jennifer?
No.
Okay, well, real quick, Poor Jennifer. It was a Zoom call, a corporate meeting. Jennifer was on Zoom and she forgot she had her camera on and she went to the bathroom. And then everyone just starts saying, "Oh, poor Jennifer." So it's known as that. So hopefully, Daniel, we don't catch you in the middle of poor Daniel. But Daniel, so the question comes to you: is Donald Trump uniting our country at this time?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just taking all my meds. You know.
Okay. Awesome.
But well, I'm kind of. You know what? To me, he doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm just putting it out there. If he's uniting, you know what? He's gonna rub. Not everybody you come across in life you're gonna agree with. Just like we disagree and we agree with certain people and certain points that they're making tonight. You're not going to like the guy, just like the last administration. People, you had groups who agreed and disagreed. It's all how you, I guess, your own personal choice. But
we're not talking about policy, though, Daniel. We're talking about uniting. So, do you feel that our country is? Let me give you a quick example to paint a picture for you. George W. Bush during 2011, not 2011, 2001. I'm sorry, 9/11. The country felt united to me. We felt like, to me, it felt like we were one. We were, hey, let's get excuse my language, the bastards who did this to us, and we were one. We really wasn't talking about controversial topics, so we were united. Do you feel Donald Trump is doing that for our country right now?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You just mentioned the wrong man, because
it's not about the person. It's just about the event and our united. So
I was in New York when those towers came down. Okay, so it was a very, very traumatic and very scary feeling to feel hopeless and scared, especially being a new father at that time. As far as unity, you know what? I never thought about it, so I really can't answer that. But okay. George Bush was behind those 9/11 attacks, and I don't care. Nobody from the Middle East was behind that attack.
That's a whole nother conversation on a whole nother podcast. But I will say this: I'm not gonna say nothing. Tune in to another podcast. You just gave us a great idea, Adrian. You shook your head no that he's not uniting the country. What else you got? You're on mute.
All right. No, I feel that we are more apart than we've ever been as a country. And I just, no. Okay. There's no way possible.
Okay. So I say this, and just briefly, he called the protesters thugs. And he said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. The ironic thing about that is, and Adrian, you being from Miami, you may be familiar with this person, former Miami police chief, known racist, Walter Headley, said the exact same words verbatim in the 60s. Of course, Trump says, oh, I didn't know that. He said the words verbatim. I find that very difficult to believe that he had no clue that those were words that were used by a racist. He is not uniting our country right now. He has not said one single thing to bring our country together during this troubling time. Does not matter to me what the race of the person is in this context. But Barack Obama, from finally getting away from all the madness of running the country, to have his feet kicked up and enjoying life and enjoying retirement, he still is tweeting very long messages on how our country could be united. Donald Trump should go to Barack Obama's school of thought, in my opinion. But next question. Is Donald Trump showing weak leadership right now with the protests going on? Daniel, I'm gonna come back to you. There's a method behind my madness here.
He's leaving it up to the governors to act the way it should. Governors are the leaders of their states. I think I don't think he's passing the buck. I just think that he's giving them an opportunity to handle the situation, to control and kind of dole down the impact. So I don't really see him directly involved. I think it's the governors of each state that controls how to control their situation respectively. We have 50 states, and so we have 50 governors that can make that call. So it's a conflict of presidential powers and state powers, So, but the governors are the head of state. So they have the power. I don't think it's his. It's up to him.
Okay, Randy, do you have a opinion on that? Is Trump showing weak leadership right now during this protest?
Absolutely. And when you have no moral compass, as I believe Donald Trump does not, you don't have the ability to lead. You know, he not only said when the looting starts, the shooting starts, which was racist. Remember, he also said about those peaceful protesters outside the White House that they would be met with vicious dogs. And that brought about the visions of Bull Connor and using dogs that way. When he had the military disperse that peaceful crowd, that showed his lack of leadership. But I do believe he does not have the ability to show compassion, to show empathy, and he has not done that. And when you do not have that leadership ability, you cannot unite the country. He does not know how to unite the country because he's appealing to his white supremacist base. And I really believe that. And that is what's so sad, because anybody else who had true leadership ability would show some compassion, some empathy for George Floyd, for his family, and would say to the whole United States, this is terrible that this happened. It must not happen again. We as a country must come together and make sure and take the steps that this will not happen again. I feel your pain, but he doesn't have the ability to do that.
You know, just to close that portion out, and this is very brief, I promise. We all know that Donald Trump loves to tweet, and a tweet had surfaced from November 25th, 2014 at 4:25 a.m., obviously well before he took office, before he ran for president. It said, our country is totally fractured, and with our weak leadership in Washington, you can expect Ferguson-type riots and looting in other places. I find it interesting in 2014, he felt that the current leadership at that time was weak because they were not doing anything to prevent that, but it would return. But now he's got strong leadership. Typical Donald Trump, in my opinion. But Eric, I am done. You're not going to hear another word from me. Thank you all for being on the panel. Eric, ask your final question, and you can close us out, sir.
No problem. One, James, I've never known you to be a liar. You're going to have something to say. Oh, you hit your mute button. Okay. So before I go into mine, Nicole, I saw your hand up. What would you like to say before I pose my last question?
I was just going to briefly say that Trump, like Hitler, amazing leaders. They're amazing. The fact that you can get a whole group of people to say, we're going to execute this whole group of people, we're going to take off their skin and use it as lampshades, and then we're going to put them in these buildings and we're just going to, concentratedly kill them with gas chambers and the like. That takes an amazing amount of leadership. You have to organize thoughts. You have to have a plan. You have to get people to buy into that shit. That is organizational leadership at its finest. He has a template. The problem is that he is only leading his America. We are still not people. We're just property. So it doesn't matter that George Floyd is dead because he is property. We're not yet people. We're still 3/5. So to that end, Trump is doing an amazing job of rallying and leading the people that he considers people in this here America. Great. Good job.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. My 2 cents is in terms of leadership. You know what? A lot of people say that Donald Trump is a racist, and I'll be honest with you. I've seen him dog everybody. I've seen him dog his own. I've seen him dog us, Hispanics, everybody. I don't think that Donald Trump is so much as a racist. Is just an idiot. The man has little, if any, compassion. I mean, he has been known to do charitable things, but even a criminal can give an act of charity, if that makes any sense. And this really is not meant to be like a dog Donald Trump segment, but I guess it's a dog Donald Trump segment. Donald Trump, in terms of some of the ideas that he have as far as being pro-America and wanting to get us to stand on our own financially and all of that other stuff, there are ideas that Donald Trump have that are great ideas. Making America, bringing us back to where we used to be. the means and the methods in which Donald Trump is trying to get there, that's what I have a huge disagreement with. His personal conduct, his lack of leadership, his womanizing, his racinizing, if racinizing is even such a word, those are the issues that I have with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is out of touch with America. And it's not, again, him being racist, he just doesn't understand a common person. Donald Trump did not grow up a common person. He came from money. He's never actually had to struggle, in my opinion, in terms of being poor. Yes, Donald Trump had to file for bankruptcy, but that was a strategic bankruptcy. He was never really in any real financial trouble. Well, we're not going to get into that. We may have a whole Donald Trump conversation because that would just take up probably the next like 10 years. But in closing with this situation, leadership is so paramount. Yes, you can go ahead and you can defer leadership to the governors, but ultimately you are the president of the United States. You should not have to depend on the governors in order to make certain decisions. The governors' jobs are to take things to where they can go when they need help. Then we should be able to go to our federal government. You should not be bashing the governor of Michigan because, you know, like you alluded to, Daniel, the governors are responsible for taking care of their state. If you don't like the decision that the governor is making, then, you know, keep your mouth shut and let them govern. But we're going to go ahead to my final question. I don't want this to turn into a rant. Chris, we're going to go ahead and start you off with this question. If a black police officer killed a white citizen the same way that George Floyd got killed, what do you think we would be talking about in terms of fairness?
Well, I mean, I think we saw it. We saw it actually happen when a black police officer ended up killing a white woman, I think from Australia. I'm not sure where she was from. But we saw what was happening. He was arrested, he was convicted, and it was an open and shut case. So I think we know what would happen if the roles were reversed because we've seen it happen live. So I mean, I have no question if the roles were reversed, we'd see a different outcome.
So how do you think the white community would have responded specifically?
That's a good question. I think had the black officer gotten off, is that what?
So let's just say there was an acquittal. Let's just say the same situation happened in the same set of circumstances. Officer not being immediately charged. There were 3 other accomplices that sat there. Just reverse the entire situation.
I think the outrage would have been very similar to when the whole situation with OJ. I think white people would have been outraged. I think they would have been absolutely beside themselves had this black police officer gotten off with killing a white woman in cold blood like that.
Okay. Randy, your thoughts?
Boy, I don't know. Because it's not as common. It's not pronounced like that. So I don't think there would be a national. There certainly wouldn't be a galvanized national movement if that happened. And again, I think that shows the disparity between what's happened in this whole racial divide in our country. And this has happened so many times. Black people, which started the whole Black Lives Matter movement, that this is a bigger thing. I mean, that would be such an isolated incident that a black police officer would kill a white person. It would be so isolated that it wouldn't cause this national furor that we have now because it would be so rare.
All right, thank you. And lastly, we are going to hear from Adam. Adam, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I know exactly what would happen, because I already hear it all the time, and it's because I talk to people that bring up these type of situations all the time, and that have the opposite view that I have. And what they say is, look at this situation here. The exact same situation happened, and do you see us raising hell about it? No, we're not. You know, they try to shift it into this level of condescension and that they're elitists above the people that are protesting. Look at us. We're not raising Cain about it, and it happens to us too. It's just proof that you know, roughly 50% of the population don't get it. I hear it all the time, and it's from right wing, you know, extremists, and those people are in way greater numbers than anybody realizes, and it's proof by how much support that 45 still gets.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So, you know, we definitely appreciate everybody's time. At some point, we are going to have a part 2 to continue this discussion. So I just want to give everybody a quick opportunity to give like their final remarks, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to let you guys get out of here. So what we will do is we will start with Adrian. Just a real brief closing remark, please.
Sorry, my closing remark is basically, yes, a protest definitely needs to be heard. We definitely need to react as a country and quit the division that we have. We are all citizens of this country, and we all must look out for one another and support one another's movements. And as you guys have said it, Black lives do matter too.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is we're dealing with a lot in this country right now. We've got the, you know, coronavirus that's happening. We've got civil unrest and everything else that's going on in this country. And, you know, at the end of the day, it still comes down to respecting each other and not being judgmental and not being downplaying someone else's right to exist. And I think once we get to a point to where we can, you know, we may not agree on everything, but can we at least get to a point to where we appreciate one another's right to exist? And I think until we get to that level, I don't foresee a chance where we're ever going to go back to normal, if there really ever was a normal.
All right, thank you. Randy, your closing remarks, please.
Well, as tragic as it was what happened with George Floyd, I'm optimistic, seeing the demonstrations around the country, that there is an awareness and hopefully a commitment to let's do better in the future. We recognize there is a racial issue still in this country, but let's get together and let's solve it. And this isn't going to happen overnight, but I am optimistic that things are going to be better in the future.
Thank you, Randy. Daniel, you're up. Your closing remarks, please.
I'm pleased that we can have some civil talk about various issues, you know, intense issues, and without anybody losing their cool. It's great that we can be different, but we can be respectable at the same time towards each other. If we can only multiply that by millions, I think we would have a better society. Unfortunately, we have a society that are very impulsive, and they just react without looking at the whole picture or hearing people out totally. But I'm very pleased that we had a group of people tonight that can relate with some, and some that we can't, but we know where we're coming from. You know, we can still coexist.
Thank you very much. Nicole?
I just wanted to say, I guess in closing, I have too much to say, so I will just say thank you to the host for attempting to facilitate this very important conversation. I am not as hopeful as the rest of the people on this team. History and the other day don't make me hopeful. Like, I'll be hopeful when I can see a Black police officer kneel on a white man's neck for 9 minutes and kill him. And it's all good. You know what I mean? Like, everybody can kill equally. When that can happen, when white people can die at disproportionately, at the numbers that are equal to the amount of numbers that we're dying and being thrown in jail, I'll be a little more hopeful. As the numbers get better, my hope will grow. But having said all of that, this conversation is very necessary and relevant, and I'm grateful to have been a part.
Thank you. Adam? Adam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just have one thing to say, and that is to challenge everybody here, and to challenge everybody that's watching this, is to try to receive somebody's pain and let that be that. That we don't need to be offended in the way in which they show it to us when it's peaceful. Just try to receive somebody's pain the way that it's intended.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Devine, you have the final word.
Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this discussion. I do commend everyone's transparency and honesty. If I would close with anything, I would say this, and that is the death of George Floyd and what it represents has made me introspective. And I am a Black woman and very aware of what's going on in my community and our country and our world. And it has made me evaluate what things that I have done to contribute to this effort of change and what things I can do to contribute to this effort of change. And so if I could leave us all with something, it would be to take those moments to evaluate what you have done, what you are currently doing, and what you can do to lend yourself, your skill, your talent, your ability, your knowledge to this effort. Because as I said, if all lives truly matter to us, we would never need to say that Black lives matter.
Agreed. And I'm going to chime in for a quick moment, and then I'm going to let James take us out. Sure, everybody's familiar with the saying, am I my brother's keeper? And the answer is yes, I am. In this case, I'm talking about my brothers and my sisters. We are each other's keepers. So when one of us hurts, then all of us are hurting. Right now, with the pandemic and then with the rioting situation, we're all hurting as a nation, and we're not keeping our brothers and our sisters safe. I don't feel protected. But I do think, unfortunately, the old saying that things get worse before they get better. You know what? At some point, things will get better. I'm a firm believer that I'm a glass half full guy. But right now, I do still think that we have not seen the worst of this situation. So I do think it's going to be even rougher, but we're going to have an opportunity to discuss this again. We're going to have a part 2 of this discussion. I hope all of you accept the invite to come back to the show. So with that being said, James, your final thoughts, and then would you mind taking us out, please?
No problem. Let the record state I'm only speaking because Eric asked me to. I was going to be a man of my word. But anyway, once again, thank you all for being part of the show. You know, if I'm being honest, I too am not very confident, only because of the way, as Nicole said, because of the way history, but I do not plan on giving up and having conversations. I feel as long as there's people willing to listen and have these conversations, that gives me hope, but I'm not sure if today's the day, right? I don't know if today is going to be the day that makes a difference. I'm just hopeful that it is. So that's what I do have hope in. It gives me great pleasure, if I'm being honest, when I turn on television and look at the protests and I see people of all colors that's marching, that's being a part of this movement, that's being a part of the peaceful protests. If we want to, let's focus on that. You know, it gives me great hope seeing that. It's not just, as I said in the beginning, a Black versus white issue. It's Black versus racism, right? And that's the war. So once again, thank you all for being on the show. As Eric and as I've said, part 2. Thank you for the listeners. Thank you for the questions that came from the pool. I know we didn't get to all of them, but once again, thank you all. And as I always say, it's been from our mouth to your ears. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Ear Hustling Podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.